accidental death of Sean Miller, a West Des Moines um, police officer. We do have the flags at half staff today, and the Lieutenant Governor and I will be attending his funeral. I'd like to begin with just a moment of silence in honor of Officer Sean Miller. Thank you. You may recall that last December, I issued Executive Order 87, which directed executive branch agencies to work together to develop the State of Iowa Cybersecurity Strategy by July 1 of this year. The strategy has been completed, and I've invited Bob Van Woofrot, the Iowa Chief Information Officer, Mark Scouten, Director of the Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, to talk more this morning. The Office of Chief Information Officer was the lead agency in this effort and was assisted by the Department of Public Safety, the Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, the Iowa Communications Network, and the Iowa National Guard. The State of Iowa Cybersecurity Strategy details the steps the state of Iowa needs to take to increase our resilience to cyber attacks. And these things are happening all the time. The strategy primarily focuses on lifeline critical infrastructure sectors such as energy, transportation, and communication, and state government as it relates to protection of digital government services for our citizens. The strategy also outlines recommendations in the areas of risk assessment, implementation of best practices, awareness of training for state employees, public education, collaboration with public sector and educational institutions, STEM education and training programs to foster and improve cybersecurity workforce, data breach reporting and notification requirements, and updating Iowa's emergency response plan to specifically deal with the physical consequences of a cyber attack on our state's infrastructure. By implementing the recommendations outlined in the strategy, Iowa will be better able to not only respond to cyber security events, but also to proactively mitigate risks for our citizens and government operations. Cybersecurity is a top priority for Iowa. It is also the focus of the National Governors Association this year, and it's important to other states and the nation, as well as, frankly, the whole world. I'm proud of the work that has been done here in the state of Iowa. In a moment, you will hear more of the specifics. But first, I'm going to ask Lieutenant Governor Kim Reynolds to talk about one component of the strategy, which is very important to her, and that is the role of STEM education and training programs to help us build the cybersecurity workforce of the future. This is the report, which is available to all of you today.
Well, good morning, and thank you, Governor Branstad. And my thoughts and prayers also go out to the family of Officer Miller. As most of you are aware, I don't think it's a great secret, I am absolutely passionate about science, technology, engineering, and math, or STEM, and the efforts that are taking place across our state. We've had great success with the Governor's STEM initiative, not only through our initiative, but through organic initiatives as well. We've been able to reach more than 100,000 students pre-K through 12 annually over the past few years. And we know that it's essential that we have a well-equipped and available workforce. We know that the need for workers in STEM continues to increase, not only to keep Iowa and our country innovative and competitive in a knowledge-based global economy. We know that they pay 3 times more, and that also includes a growing and vital area of cybersecurity. So we want to ensure that our students are prepared for not only the future, but for cybersecurity careers. Iowa State University has been recognized by NSA as a center of academic excellence in information assurance, cyber defense, education, and supplies to our state and the nation highly skilled cybersecurity professionals. Iowa State, along with partners such as DMAC and the Technology Association of Iowa, have helped to recruit, educate as well as place cybersecurity students not only in internships but in great jobs all across the state of Iowa and the nation. We know that as a state we have to continue to do more, and that is certainly reflected in the Iowa Cybersecurity Strategies recommendations that it's Monday morning, right? Okay. Scholarship programs are created for Iowa students just so we can ensure that they look at that and probably have some incentives to pursue the wonderful careers that we're talking about. The strategy emphasizes the need to create pathways to those cybersecurity careers that begin in kindergarten and extend into higher education. The state departments involved in developing this strategy recognize the importance of having a workforce that is prepared to handle the cybersecurity challenges that we face today as well as into the future. So this is just another demonstration of the importance of Iowa STEM Initiative and science, technology, engineering, and math, and the contribution that it can make to fulfilling the state's cybersecurity needs for the future. So now I'd like to bring to the podium Bob VW, and he's going to give you some more details on the strategy. Bob?
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Governor, good morning, everybody. What you find here is a very collaborative effort with multiple agencies within the state and even some of our private partners. And what we're trying to do is provide a lot more visibility on cybersecurity from a threat perspective, but also mitigation perspective, and also to help our employees navigate and deal with all of the electronic data that passes in front of them. In addition to that, we would like to infuse a little bit more of a public campaign and make sure our citizens are aware of the threats that are out there with cybersecurity. So a couple quick things I just wanted to mention. The awareness training from an employee perspective, you're going to see that stepped up quite significantly in the next year or so. Risk assessments, although we're doing those across the state in multiple agencies, the governor's now going to get a report card by agency on that, and so will the legislature see exactly what kind of risk each of the agencies are facing. That will delve into the budgetary constraints of funding everything that we could possibly fund for cybersecurity, but it'll start providing some perspective and balance about the risk that we're dealing with the data that we have and we're entrusted with. I think from a best practice perspective, we're looking at how we deal with all the mitigation factors across multiple agencies within the state. Because as you know, we have local data, we have federal data, we have state data, and this is true across the United States. So from a best practice perspective, there are people out there that are doing really, really good things. So we're trying to open that envelope out and receive some of that information so we can implement here. And now I'd like to introduce Mark Scouten from Homeland Security to talk about critical infrastructure.
Thank you, Bob. Good morning. As Governor Branstad said, the Iowa Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management has been a partner in the creation of this Iowa cybersecurity strategy. Our job at Homeland Security and Emergency Management is to ensure Iowa and its citizens are prepared, ready to respond, and have the ability to recover from all types of hazards, including the hazard that we speak of this morning, a significant cyber incident or attack. We serve as a coordinating role in the response to disasters, and we work with other state agencies and other entities to provide them the resources that they may need in a disaster. In the past years, 10 years, we've done this a lot. In fact, we have coordinated and responded and helped in the recovery and mitigation of some $2.3 billion in disaster damages and mitigation efforts. However, none of these disasters were caused by a cyber attack. But a significant cyber event, the thing we're talking about today, a cyber attack, we will serve in that same coordinating role. We work with the same partners, Department of Public Safety, OCIO, the National Guard, in order to deal with the physical consequences that flow from a disaster like that. We expect that the primary role we'll play in a significant cyber event will be on maintaining the ability of the state of Iowa to provide those essential services that it provides right now, and then also to lessen the physical consequences of a cyber attack to those entities that we refer to as lifeline critical industries. And by saying lifeline critical industries, I refer to industries such as the electric and gas utility systems, the water and wastewater reclamation systems, our communication systems, those systems that exist throughout the state that frankly we rely upon on a day-to-day basis to keep ourselves and our property safe. And so we'll respond to a significant cyber event in ways we have responded to other disasters in the past. We use something the governor referred to, our state's emergency response plan. This plan is a multi-hazard plan, which means that it employs a standard set of capabilities and processes to address a wide variety of different hazards and response conditions, from flooding to tornadoes to winter snow emergencies to hazardous material spills. It's the same plan, but we will be amending it to add a significant cyber event as part of that plan. So should a significant cyber attack occur to our critical lifeline utilities or to the state of Iowa, it's likely we'll work with the same partners that have helped to draft this cyber strategy we have presented to the governor today. The Office of Chief Information Officer, the Iowa Communications Network, the Iowa Department of Public Safety, and the Iowa National Guard. We'll also use those partnerships we've already formed with local emergency managers and with the critical lifeline utilities. Finally, we'll use those processes and experiences that we have gained from disasters in our state in the past that we have handled quite successfully as a state in order to respond to this new threat that we face in today's world, a significant cyber event. Thank you.
Just as an example of how this cybersecurity requires collaboration, recently the Lieutenant Governor and I visited with the people from Shazam. You may know that Shazam is a company that's headquartered here in Iowa, and they deal with cyber attacks all the time. And our discussions with them centered on the fact that a lot of our law enforcement really has not received any training on this. So I put them in touch with Judy Bradshaw, who's in charge of the Law Enforcement Academy. And so that's another thing we're going to try to do is beef up the training of law enforcement and the collaboration and the expertise of private sector groups like Shazam can be really helpful because they have people that are dealing with this all the time that can help us make sure that law enforcement as well is part of the team dealing with and preventing cyber attacks. Yes. Sure.
Okay, in the general financial considerations section, it says, presenting a strategy without acknowledging the potential need for funding would be incomplete, and then it notes that you intend to provide specific details during the normal budgeting cycle. Can you
Right.
give us a ballpark?
We don't have, we first of all, this report has just been completed. We're going to be in the process of reviewing it and looking at what might be needed in terms of actions and financing, if there's any legislative areas that we might want to recommend. So I just say, stay tuned. We will address this between now and when we present the budget and recommendations to the legislature in January.
I have a question for Mr.
Yeah.
What would the,
VW?
what would be the objective of a public campaign?
Well, every October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month nationally. And I think what we do is a great job about taking materials that we either develop ourselves or receive from the federal government and move those around to schools, libraries, and the public at large. I think we need to be a little bit more direct in that. I think we need to talk about how they exchange information. We want to work with the AG's Consumer Affairs Division and make sure we can provide them some information that they use. I think there's just a better cohesive way to address that for the public in general.
Do you think the public is naive?
Absolutely not, because I'm the public too.
Well, it's a new thing. It's a new,
Need a public education.
well, because this thing is a rapidly changing environment. And we're dealing with, just like law enforcement, the present law enforcement agents, they didn't get training in cybersecurity when they went through the law enforcement academy. But it's become a much bigger issue here in recent years. And that's the reason why we think we need to upgrade the training for the people that are going through the academy, but also the people that have been in law enforcement for some time. And a lot of times it's the ones that have been out there a while that aren't as up to speed with the developments that are going on. So it's an ongoing thing that we all need to work on. Other questions? Yes.
Could you give us some cybersecurity? It's a really just kind of large.
It's a huge
Give us some
issue.
Tangible examples in the day-to-day life of state government where, examples of where we're at risk with cybersecurity.
Well, I think you probably were aware of that South Carolina had a major breach. And do you want to address that? But South Carolina was a state that got hit really hard with a major breach. Federal government has too, by the way.
So the threat is everywhere all the time. So incidentally, from an employee perspective, they may receive email that has malicious content within it. Our idea is to ensure that they receive the absolute best training on how to identify that malicious content, what not to click on, how to report it, and all of that. And that's a never-ending issue. As the governor mentioned, we have employees that may have received some of that training in the past. We have people coming in and leaving state government all the time. So we're just trying to figure out the best way to put a fence around that and make sure everybody coming in is understanding what the threats are out there. So that's one aspect. I think the other aspect is the protection of data. Whether you email a document, you put it on a thumb drive, you share it with somebody, all of those awareness issues are what we're trying to identify specifically.
You just did an assessment, a risk assessment. What is the risk level right now in the state of Idaho?
I would put it at moderate, just overall with all of the factions. But as the governor mentioned, the depth and breadth of cybersecurity, it's kind of a misnomer when you say cybersecurity because you're painting a really large envelope. And there's a lot of specific things in there that we can do to address that. So we have a training issue that I want to make sure we get squared away for all of our employees. We have a risk assessment report card that we want to work with the agency directors and make sure they're aware of what the business opportunities are to fix those risks. We want to report that to the governor so he has a really good understanding of what's going on in the executive branch. There's just many, many different facets to that.
Other questions?
Would you like to pronounce your last name for the broadcast? We've heard it several different ways.
I thought Lieutenant Governor said VW very, very well. Von Wolfrat.
Yes.
Getting legislation through is always fun in the split legislature. Have you gotten an assessment from?
We're not sure that this requires legislation, but we're going to review and analyze if there are areas where it might. Most of this can be done administratively. And that, well, some of these may not have to be rules, but just practices and just training people in doing the right thing and what to be on the lookout for in terms of attacks.
Do you have a deadline for when you want to get all of this stuff?
Well, we want those things that might require additional resources. Obviously, we want that to be reviewed through the budgeting process so we can address that when I present my biennial budget to the General Assembly in January. And we want to be working on this right away. We've been, I signed this executive order last December. Several agencies have been working on it. And then, as the Lieutenant Governor and I travel around and look at ways we can collaborate with the private sector, the meeting we had with Shazam, I was impressed with the expertise they have. And you might imagine with the money that they're dealing with all the time, they are a target for a lot of attacks. They have a lot of knowledge and expertise, and they're very willing to share that with us and help us as we work to deal with it. And so that's the other thing. Banks have to deal with this all the time. you know, it's not an easy thing to talk about because people don't want to talk about their vulnerabilities or whatever. But we do want the sharing of information. We want the knowledge that's gained by those that have successfully thwarted cyber attacks to be able to be shared with others, and whether they're in the private sector or state and local government. And obviously, things like utilities are a particular target that we want to protect because our infrastructure is critically important for the people of our state.
I just think the other thing that I would add is there's no silver bullet. And so this is something that we need to continue to work on. And the collaboration and bringing all the stakeholders together at the table is so critical. But the people that are hacking in, it's a sophisticated industry. And so it's continually changing and we need to stay on top of it. And this gives us a place to start, but it's a place to start the conversation and to continue to work with agencies to see that how we can continue to be on top of it as we move through the future.
Also, I would say as co-chair of the Governor's Council that advises the Pentagon and the National Guard and Homeland Security, and General Tim Orr is here. The Iowa National Guard is actively engaged and involved in this as well. And this has been an issue that we've been working on for the last couple of years through the Governor's Council. And I'm proud to say that collaboration between the federal government, the Department of Defense, and the National Guard has really improved dramatically over that time. Other questions? Other questions, other issues that anybody would?
Speaking of silver bullets.
Yes.
Do you think people should be allowed to carry weapons on the Iowa State Fairgrounds during the fair? It's been practiced with that since 1980, so during your entire run of the
Yeah.
fair.
Well, I support the right to carry, but I think the fairgrounds is a little different situation because we have such phenomenal coverage from the highway patrol at the fair. I'm familiar with the fact that we have a significant number of state troopers that are there and protect the safety of the citizens. So it's not like other places where you have nobody with a firearm to protect somebody against a violent act. We have excellent security, and I think the patrol does a great job. And because of that, I think that's the reason why you really don't need to have your own firearm for your protection at the fair.
Couldn't you make the same argument with the Republican convention? There was a whole issue about.
Right, and that was the case.
They had law enforcement, a lot of law enforcement there.
Right, and I was there, and it was very safe, and I didn't feel it. In fact, all the predictions that it was going to be a lot of problems turned out not to be the case. And I've got to tell you that the Ohio police people that were assigned to us were wonderful to work with. And not only that, they knew some great restaurants that were reasonable, low cost, and we got the chance to go to places where people didn't normally get to go. And so I just want to say I want to compliment the city of Cleveland and the Ohio law enforcement people. They did a phenomenal job, and there was virtually no major problems where there were predictions in advance that it was going to be terrible, and it wasn't. So they did a great job, and I felt very safe all the time that we were there.
So back on the state fair, you would oppose a policy or legal change to allow?
Well, I understand that there may be issues come before the legislature on that. I'm just saying that I've gone to the state fair for decades and decades, and I just want to compliment the fair board and the Department of Public Safety, our state troopers. They do a phenomenal job, and I know there's a lot of them assigned to be there at the fair and protect the safety of the citizens that are there. And frankly, I think the state troopers enjoy it too. So it's a good thing, and it's worked well, and it's provided for safety, and we have a significant presence there.
Because I know that the regions, universities are not part of the executive branch, but you do appoint regents. There's been some questions raised about board office spending, including salaries.
Right.
Do you think that that's just kind of bad PR when people are struggling with tuition, that this money that, you know, it in effect comes out of the university budgets and goes to the board office? Do you have any concerns about that?
Well, it's no doubt that the highest paid people in state government are by far the people that work for the Board of Regents. People that work at the University of Iowa hospitals, the faculty and all of that. And I guess some in the board office as well, but that's a small portion of it. And they, as you know, are separately governed. Their salaries are set by the Board of Regents, not by the governor's office. We have, for the rest of state government, the legislature sets the salary range, and then we set the salary within that range. I want to be, you know, I understand at the university level that their desire to have salaries that are competitive so that they don't lose some of their best people. But I think we've got to be very careful in terms of the level of spending, and the universities need to recognize they're part of state government as well, even though they're separately governed, and they need to be cognizant of the need to try to keep the costs as reasonable as possible, so that we can, and we have made significant progress during the last 5 years. We had 2 years with no increase in tuition, and we've had relatively modest increases in tuition. I would contrast that to the Vilsack years when we had double-digit increases, sometimes as high as 17, 18%. I don't want to see us go back to those bad old days.
Should that concern about competitive faculty salaries, should that extend to the board office?
Yes, I think the board office actually is the office that oversees and coordinates the funding for the universities. So, you know, they're part of the whole region system. But again, I would caution that the regents need to be very cognizant of the budget limitations that we have in state government, and we got to live within our means.
Here, Mike Pence will be in
Yeah.
Iowa today, and I hear that there's
Sioux
still-
City and Council Bluffs.
Right, I'm hearing still reports that there's issues with issuing press credentials to publications like the Des Moines Register. I'm curious now that we're in the general election, and whether you think that that's a practice that should continue.
Well, first of all, I'm not running their campaign, and that decision was made a long time ago. That decision was made a long time ago, and basically the Des Moines Register initiated it, and, you know, that's the way it is.
So through the rest of the general election, they should receive. press
Well,
credentials.
listen, far be it from me. I've never, as you know, I have a press conference every week. You're all invited to come to our press conferences. We run our own operation, but we don't try to tell other people how to run theirs.
Is it okay if he's president to forbid certain publications that are part of the White House?
You know what Jesse Ventura did in Minnesota? He made the press wear badges that said jackal. So I guess you can do what you want when you're the chief executive. And that's what he did. Hillary Clinton has a different approach. She doesn't have press conferences. So, you know, I think it's up to each individual to decide how they're going to operate. As you know, I'm a very open, transparent guy. We have press conferences on a regular basis. We have Governor Ray's picture up here because he set the record for press conferences. When he was first governor, he had a press conference every day, and then eventually reduced it to 2 a week. And we've maintained that tradition by having at least 1 a week, and then when we go out to other places in the state, we have them. But I'm not going to try to tell other candidates or other office holders how they should operate. But I'm very proud of the way we do things here in Iowa. We've had a very open, transparent system. We don't require you to wear nasty badges and those kinds of things. And we don't deny certain members of the press, regardless of how they treat us, to participate. But that's just the way we operate. But I'm not saying that other people can't have a different mode of operation.
Your son is the state director for Trump's campaign. Does that not help with the events here in Iowa where there might be some more
Well, first of all, I'm proud of my son, and he got this job because he worked with the Renewable Fuel Alliance, and I think he impressed Mr. Trump with his knowledge and the way he was a great advocate for renewable energy, ethanol, biodiesel, and consequently, he was chosen for this. He's taken this responsibility very seriously. They're working very hard to build a strong organization, and I think we could surprise a lot of people in Iowa. But we're here supporting the whole ticket. Senator Grassley, our congressional candidates, our legislative candidates, and of course, Trump and Pence. And I know Governor Pence well. I think he's been a great governor. I'm glad he's back in Sioux City and Council Bluffs today. And we're going to continue to do what we can. And we've invited him to come back many more times. And I think he's going to. But stay tuned, because we'll be announcing that in the future. Okay, thank you.